Well, I'm Charlie Leadbeater. I'm the author of this book, We Think. I work for myself, I'm independent, I work in networks with lots of other people. I used to be a journalist for the Financial Times and the Independent, but for the last 12 years I've worked really without a job and without a title and without an organisation to think about different ways in which people are innovating in cities, in regions, in the public sector and in the private sector.
All right. Could you summarize your book, We Think? What is it about?
It's about how the web is changing our culture and the way we organise, creating a culture which is much more permissive, in which people can participate much more easily, in which they can share much more easily, and which creates the possibility that they can collaborate at scale, across distance, much more powerfully. And that creates new options for us that didn't exist before, to find collaborators, to connect with people, to share ideas, to get things done. And it's the creation of those new organisational opportunities and recipes which makes it so, is one of the things that makes it so powerful and so important. It's one way of thinking about it, yeah. The dilemma, I suppose, is, and this is one of the questions, is open source develops in software where there's something called source code. And is something that developed in that particular setting with software, are the organisational models applicable to fields where there isn't software in the same way? So what interests me, has always interested me right from the word go, is whether things like Linux offer a different way of organising ourselves that could apply to other industries, but also to health, to learning, and so on and so forth. And I think, at the very least, it's now possible to ask that question. In virtually any area you can ask the question, could we do this in a sort of open source style way? And even if the answer is no, not quite, or no, not at all, it's still worth asking the question, because there are those new possibilities. I think the other problem, however, or the other question about the sort of open source metaphor is what matters that knowledge is open, or is it collaboration that matters? Because you can have formally open knowledge, open in its sort of legal aspects, without it being open in other ways that can generate collaboration. And I think in the long run, actually what really matters is collaboration. It's our ability to collaborate more effectively that really creates these new, more powerful ways of doing things. It's not just being open. So you could imagine something being open but not used. Well, scientific knowledge, for instance, you can have in a very open way, but actually it remains quite inaccessible, and you don't generate a community around it. There are open source projects which really just rely on a single individual and not on a community. What's really interesting is when you get this community of collaboration around it. So that I think is, it's important to focus on that, because I think that if you focus too much just on openness, you get drawn too much towards just issues of intellectual property. And it's not just an issue of intellectual property, it's also issues of governance and culture and all these things as to whether these collaborative endeavours work. So there's going to be a very interesting exploration of these fields. I think a lot of companies you can already see who are sort of rushing into this space, hoping that in some sense they're going to get a magical kind of new source of idea. It's really gathering pace, yeah. So, and I think the downturn actually will propel it more. So, in the States, Dell has this thing called Idea Storm, which has generated 10,000 ideas. My Starbucks has attracted, I don't know, 58,000 ideas or more from Starbucks customers worldwide. So I think there is a movement towards these more open models of innovation, but I think a lot of companies think about it in a very superficial kind of way. Well, they think that simply by opening up to more customer engagement, they'll either get more ideas and they'll probably limit customer complaints. They treat it as just another way to do innovation, but with a slightly different, sort of wider funnel into their innovation process. And actually, the truth is that innovation comes from a sort of intensity of collaboration often, that you don't just get by throwing your doors open, apparently, to new ideas. It comes from a sort of something much more intense and governed and all the rest of it. So I think after this initial wave, which I think in the US certainly, and to some extent in the UK, Denmark, the Netherlands certainly, if not the rest of continental Europe, I think there'll be a sort of, oh yes, maybe we can open out, and then a kind of process of consolidation and learning about what really works. Yeah, because I think Obama is a very, very good example of someone who has instinctively and strategically understood the importance of combining the old and the new. So he's used the new, the web, to assemble this great coalition of small contributors, which has been important both to financing and to legitimacy. He's had this very open approach to making available policy and those kinds of things. He's mobilised people in the campaign that way. He's communicated via the web. He's allowed other forms of communication to happen and even encouraged them via YouTube and things like that. But he also, at the end of it, did a 30-minute television commercial, which is the old world, it's old media. And so Obama has been this, I think, a very, very good, he's telegenic, he understands the importance of, if you like, traditional forms of communication. He's won over the old machine, but he's also used the new. And I think that is a very, very interesting model. And one of the issues, of course, will be whether that now marks, I think it now marks a permanent change in campaigning in the US, definitely. After Howard Dean, Obama, I think definitely a permanent change. Whether it marks a real change in government and politics and powers is another question. New way to mobilise people, mobilise money, get voters out, pursue political attacks, to get issues debated. It's created an entirely new cycle where instead of, when 10 years ago the cycle was all about the evening television news, and now it's completely different news cycle. It's a completely different kind of landscape, yeah.